of the Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group Plant Rich Diet Task Force. So that's a mouthful. We have worked really hard to find excellent speakers to provide information supporting our journey together. Today is no exception, and I'm pleased to welcome all of you to our speakers. And this is the first time we've had speakers. So these guys are a couple of my heroes. Chef Jeff Tritten and Marc Ramirez are with us today. And they are both right here in southeastern Michigan, which is where I am. Chef Jeff, a longtime restaurateur, owned a barbecue restaurant for 6 years. During that time, he gained over 130 pounds and was suffering from extreme obesity, severe edema, sleep apnea, elevated liver and kidney enzymes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, prediabetes, and severe arthritis. Ouch. Jeff reversed these conditions and lost 168 pounds by adopting a food as medicine approach to health. He's back to mountain biking and kayaking, and well, he just looks like a different person. Today, Jeff is a passionate plant-based diet advocate, teaches healthy cooking classes for seniors, and is pursuing his master's degree in public health. You can find his blog, recipes, and cooking classes at www.arespectfullife.com. And maybe we just pop that in the chat. It's in the full bio, so you've got information. You'll have information, that link available to you. You go back to our recordings. And then Marc Ramirez, he's a former University of Michigan football player. They just squeaked her by last night, didn't they, Marc? With a Bachelor of Science in Kinesiology. He is also a TEDx presenter who lost 60 pounds and reversed his type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, psoriasis, obesity, and frequent heartburn through the power of food. On December 3rd, 2011, he and his wife, Kim, began a whole foods, plant-based lifestyle. In just 2 months, Marc no longer needed his 5 medications, including insulin shots. He is president of the nonprofit Chickpea and Bean Inc, whose mission is to educate people about the power and benefits of a plant-based lifestyle and a focus on medical students and underserved communities. And with that introduction, I'm going to let you guys take it away. I know that we have an order that we're going in, and I think you know that order, so take it away.
Okay, so we're going to start you off today with showing you how easy it is to make a very healthy whole food plant-based diet. The recipe that I'm going to show you today is a Tuscan and Farro bean skillet. It's a one-pan dish, and I happen to like one-pan recipes because you can throw everything in there, let it cook, and not worry about it. You could do it in the Instant Pot if you wanted to, and in 20-30 minutes, you've got a fantastic healthy meal. In this meal, we're including some of the essentials to good health, which is onion and garlic is very good cancer fighting properties in it. We're using whole grain farro. We're using garbanzo beans as our bean, and I've got a nice healthy portion of greens I'm going to throw in it. Now, I suggest when people cook at home that you double up recipes, you freeze portions, you save it for later, and you can eat it throughout the week. You can throw it in your freezer, reheat it later. And that's the good thing about cooking in large quantities. So without further ado, I'm going to just turn the camera here and show you what we have going. All right, so really simple. I've got a skillet pan here. I've got about 2.5 cups of vegetable broth in it. I like to go a little heavy on the onion. The recipe that we'll send out to you has about a half of an onion. I did about a whole one. And I'm going to put that in there first. And we're going to get these onions a little bit cooked in and a little bit translucent. Now for seasoning, I have some fennel seed, some oregano, some fresh rosemary that came right off of my rosemary bush, and a little bit of red pepper flakes to give it a bite. The fennel seed is super important on this, so if you are a fennel fan like I am, you can go heavy on it. And I'm going to put that right in to start, and we'll get that whole thing sort of seasoning. The next thing I'm going to do, I've got some garlic cloves that I've already peeled. I've cut them in half too because they were pretty large, and I'm going to put them in just a basic garlic press. We're going to get our garlic in there. I've got a couple of nice cloves of garlic. We're going to bring this to a little bit of a boil, which I'm almost there, so just take a second. Get that stirred together, and now already it smells just delicious in the house. So for spices, you could just use your basics. Now I do refill by the pound in Ann Arbor because it's they've got fantastic spices in bulk. So I just refill my jars. I'm using a little bit of better than bouillon base for my vegetable broth. I've got 2.5 cups of vegetable broth in here. And as soon as that boils, which will just be a moment, we're going to go ahead and add farro. Now, if you've not used farro before, it is such a fantastic grain. It's kind of like barley, but it's less mushy and it has a little bit of a nutty flavor to it. So it's just got a little bit of a chew factor to it, which is nice. Now you can see we're boiling, so I'm going to add my farro. I'm going to add some fresh basil. Now, the recipe calls for a 1/4 cup of fresh basil. It was a little light on my plant, so I put in what I had and used a little bit of dry. We're going to use just some real basic, 89 cents at Walmart, diced tomato. We're going to use all of the liquids in there and just pour that right in. And then we're going to let this simmer for about 20 minutes or so. And at the end, I'm going to add spinach to wilt. This is about one cup packed, so just a nice big handful. And then I've got some organic garbanzo beans. And that is really all there is to this dish. So all we got to do is let it simmer for about 20 minutes or so. Let that farro or farro, some people call it, get cooked in there. Let all of the spices marinate. Put a lid on it. In about 20 minutes, we'll throw these other 2 items in there. We'll wait till the farro absorbs the liquids, and that is all there is to it. So that is simple. I wanted to keep it short and simple for you guys today. I believe we're going to send out the recipe if you haven't. Yep, Scott's shaking his head. He says yes. We're sending out the recipe to the participants. Super easy. All the nutrients that you need, all the protein and phytonutrients and whatnot that you can imagine. There's vitamin C in there. You've got iron in the spinach. You've got your whole grains, which is really good for your gut health and important. So there you have it. I'm going to let you move on to Marc while this cooks, and then we'll come back and see what this looks like when he's done. But Marc's got an interesting story. Welcome, Marc. Nice to present with you again.
Hey, likewise, Jeff. And you know what? I'll be over right after this. I'm driving over to your house so we can have that food, sir. So welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to come and present here. I'm really, really excited for this opportunity. I'm going to let me get my presentation going here real quick, get a little spotlight, and then get this, let me see where my cursor went. Just start playing this here. So I'm really, really excited to be here with you. Scott Andrea and team, thank you so much for putting this on. We know, and I'm living proof, Jeff is living proof, there's thousands and thousands of people who have literally changed their lives and their health by adopting a plant-based lifestyle. And so I'm here to share my story. Again, I'm Chickpea and Bean. You heard Jeff talk about that, or Scott rather talk about that. So I'm just going to go on. This is a quick disclaimer. It basically says I'm not a doctor, I'm not a dietitian or a nutritionist. I'm simply a person who changed my eating habits and my lifestyle and reversed all of my chronic illnesses. Please, we recommend that you work with your medical providers and physicians to hopefully have them support you on your way to better health by adopting a plant-based lifestyle, okay? So please work with your doctors. Again, I'm coming to you with a message of hope because I was battling with so many chronic illnesses, as you heard Scott say, and I was able to reverse them all. And here I am a decade later. December 3rd of 2011 was when my wife and I adopted this lifestyle. And here we are almost a decade later, still medication free at 53 years old and in the best shape of my life. So I'm here to share this message of hope in hopes that you all, if you're struggling, you can do this. And if you have family members, loved ones, friends that are struggling, maybe you can help them by sharing this information. So here's a picture of my wife and I's wedding day. This is my side of the family. The arrow is above my oldest brother, David. Now, David died at the young age of 41 after a 9-month bout with pancreatic cancer. David was diabetic approximately a decade. He had high blood pressure, high cholesterol, left his wife and 2 children behind. Next is my little brother, Martin. Now, Martin is 5 years younger than me. He's 48, I'm 53. Martin was diagnosed with diabetes at about 13 or 14 years of age, so he's had it for approximately 35 years, diabetes. Now, he's had his right leg amputated. He's had 2 kidney and 1 pancreas transplants. He's had a heart attack. He has no teeth. He basically is on multiple medications. We're talking in the teens, right? He was on dialysis for approximately a decade, and he's been blind since 2004. So you talk about a tough life. My little brother, unfortunately, lives that tough life, and it's all a result of starting with diabetes and then ultimately high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and just 35 years of chronic illness. Now, my mother, Carol, mom died after battling diabetes for 33 years. She had a kidney transplant. She was blind for approximately a decade. She had 2 heart attacks, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, ultimately needed to go into the hospital for a double bypass, and unfortunately never made it out. She passed at the young age of 61 after she had a double bypass. My little sister, Sandra's been battling diabetes approximately 20 years. She's 2 years younger than me. She has high blood pressure, high cholesterol, insulin shots, multiple medications. My sister, Jill, she's the only one in this photo besides my wife who has not struggled with diabetes. So they're the only 2 in this photo. And because of that, remember I mentioned my mother had a kidney transplant? Guess where one of those kidneys came from? From Jill. So no diabetes, but still impacted. My oldest sister, Carol battled diabetes for approximately 5 years. She was taking metformin. Once she saw what my wife and I did in the way of adopting a plant-based lifestyle, she injected mostly plants into her eating habits and was able to eliminate her diabetes medications. And last but not least, my twin brother, Joe. There's 2 of us, and the evil twins, right? So Joe's been battling diabetes for about 22 years or so. High blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart attack. So when you look at the chronic illness that has devastated my entire family. We're talking amputations, blindness, transplants, heart attacks, cancer. I mean, it's horrific, right? And this is why I share my story, to try and, share this message of hope, and that there is some hope for all of us, everyone listening here, and all of our loved ones and family as well. Now let's take a little look at what chronic illness and disease looks like. This is my little brother's medications. This is what he wakes up and stares at every single morning. And some of these medications he's taking multiple times a day. Now I'm sorry, I should have warned you. He had an amputation. He actually had 2 of them. He caught a blood blister in the top of his right foot. 2 of his toes were turning purple, so they amputated his 4 toes. His ankle down here, believe it or not, there is an ankle here, but it's not healing well. So they had to go and take his leg just below the knee within a week of taking his toes. So 2 amputations in a matter of a week. And then I mentioned that while he was waiting to get his kidney transplants, he was on dialysis approximately 10 years. You go and you hook up to this machine, and it cleans your blood out 3 times a week, 4 hours every procedure. And just about that time that you're done with the procedure, you get home, you're resting, you start to feel a little better the next day, and bam, it's time to go back for dialysis the next morning. So it is, I love the fact that the technology's there, but it is really a terrible experience to have to go through this. And he did it for almost a decade. So I share this story because, again, while my family, I always get this, it's too hard to go plant-based, Mark. It's impossible. It's too tough. I can't do that. And I tell people, to me, living like my little brother lives, that's tough. Not eating all the sweet potatoes and all the oatmeal and all the vegetables and all the fruits I want. That's pretty easy. What's tough is trying to live a life like he lives. And so while my family was back in Chicago getting sick, I had the fortunate opportunity to earn a football scholarship to come play at the University of Michigan, the greatest university on this planet. Go Blue. So I was 305 pounds. I'm 6'2". I was a right guard. And here's a picture of me in approximately 1989. Again, about 305 pounds. Fast forward 7 years out of college. This is 1997. I married my college sweetheart. We started to have a family. And here I am. This is about 7 years out of college, but you can see my belly. My belly's getting bigger. My face is getting bigger. And chronic illness, it's not here yet, but it's very close. You can see my 2 children in my photo here. You fast forward to 2011. We're on my daughter's high school senior trip. We're on a cruise in Mexico. So we're here getting ready for dinner. And here you can see I'm about 260 pounds. Again, I'm busting at the seams in these pants. My cheeks are kind of big. I'm 260 pounds. And it's at this point that I've been diabetic almost a decade. I'm on Lantus insulin shots twice a day. I'm on Januvia, metformin. I'm on lisinopril and simvastatin for high blood pressure, high cholesterol. And this is what I wake up to every morning, insulin shots and multiple medications. And I knew I needed to make a change because I didn't want to end up dying at a very young age and not get to see my grandchildren, not get to know them. And that's what happened with my mother. My mother passed. My daughter was 9. My son was 6. And she was already blind, so she could barely make out their silhouettes. She couldn't see the wrinkles or lines on their face. She couldn't see their eyes, the color of their eyes. All she could see was a silhouette. I did not want that to happen to me, so I knew I needed to make a change. I ended up watching a documentary by the name of Forks Over Knives. And from that documentary, we were introduced to Dr. Neil Barnard. We read his book, Dr. Neil Barnard's Program for Reversing Diabetes. And on December 3rd, my wife and I adopted a low-fat, plant-based lifestyle. So if you look at these 2 photos, these are the pictures of my blood work, okay? So if you look, my blood work here on the left is from September of 2011, and over here is December of 2011. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can look at this a little closer. If you look at my cholesterol levels here, on the top is September, the bottom photo is December. This is when we adopted this low-fat, plant-based lifestyle, okay? You look at my cholesterol, 164, my triglycerides, 192, my HDL was 38, LDL 87. My hemoglobin A1C down here, 10.5. So we adopt this lifestyle on December 3rd of 2011, and 26 days later, it's time to go get our blood checked again. So here we are, December 23rd, same year. Every 3 months as diabetics, we go get checked. Look at what happens to my cholesterol. Plummeted 60 points to 104. My triglycerides dropped 81 points to 111. HDL stayed about the same at 38, 39. LDL, the bad cholesterol, cut in half from 87 to 44. And most impressive to me, my hemoglobin A1C dropped to 8.1 in just 26 days, right? I had never seen these results in my decade of being sick. And this was the aha moment for me to stay down this course. And it just so happens that in 2 months, I was able to eliminate all those medications that you saw, my insulin shots, all my oral medications. And in 3 months, I shed 50 pounds off my frame. These are those same pants on that cruise back in 2011, 50 pounds lighter, most of it coming right off my waist here. And at this point, I got to 210 pounds, which is what I weighed in 6th grade. 5th and 6th grade was the last time I weighed what I weighed today at 53 years old. So it was amazing results. And, when I look at myself now at 53 years old, I'm working out 3-4 times a week with some weights. I get some cardio in every day, some walking, some brisk walking, and some jogging. And this is the results I get. Now, in Michigan, I didn't look like this. And it's because I'm eating and fueling my body with the right foods. So you're not going to miss protein. I promise you, with beans and all the plant-based foods, you're going to get plenty of protein, and you're going to get it in the right amounts. When I go to the doctor now, hey, my total cholesterol, 136. This is from this year. HDL 40, triglycerides 92, LDL 77, fasting glucose 95, all normal. No medications, almost a decade. January 30th of 2022, it will be 10 years I've not taken any medications, simply a B12 supplement. And in the wintertime, we take some vitamin D. That's it, nothing else. So you can do this. We're a decade in. And in my opinion, if the FDA were really doing their job, we'd take the clown, the chihuahua, the colonel, the king, right? And we'd lock them up and we'd never let them out, because these fast food restaurants are absolutely killing our folks. And I get it. It's marketing, right? When I show this picture to people, I say, hey, do you see anything crazy or abnormal or just foolish about this picture? And people look at me like, well, no, Mark, that's just mama cat feeding her kittens. Everything looks normal here. I agree, looks normal. How about here? Does this look normal, where we have a baby calf taking nourishment from mama cow? No, it looks normal. That's the reaction I get from everybody. Now, how about here? Does this look normal to anybody? No, we are the only mammals that take secretions from another mammal. You will not drive into the jungles of Africa and find a gorilla taking nourishment from an elephant. That doesn't happen. Cats don't take nourishment from dogs, and dogs don't take it from cats. We should be getting our food and our milk from our mother, not from an entirely different species. So that goes to show you something. And I get it. It's marketing, right? You look at this advertisement back in the 60s, 50s. Here you have a medical professional telling you, hey, give your throat a vacation and smoke a fresh cigarette. We know smoking causes cancer, right? We know that. So in my opinion, the food industry is exactly where the tobacco industry was about 40, 50 years ago. They're feeding us all this food that's poisonous to our body. Unfortunately, we are getting bigger and sicker than ever. And it starts with the food and our lifestyles. You used to be able to buy cigarettes right at your bedside in the hospital. We know we can't do that today, right? So one of the last things I'll talk about is protein, right? Everyone's so concerned and so consumed about protein. Where do you get your protein? Where do you get your protein? Well, I tell them, time out. Let's look at the gorilla. The gorilla shares the same DNA as a human being to 98.3%. They're almost human from a genetic standpoint. And guess what? That guy in the picture there, he doesn't eat meat. And he doesn't drink milk except when he's young from his mother. How does he get so big and strong? Where's his muscles and that big skeletal structure? How is he getting all that calcium and protein? Plants. The same place I've been getting mine for 10 years. And take it one step further, rhinoceros, the bull, the stallion, the elephant, the giraffe, the largest land animals on this planet, guess what? They're all vegan. They don't eat meat and they don't drink milk except when they're young from their mother. Where are they getting all these muscles and skeletal structures? Plants, the same place we will. And ironically, growing up around the football industry, it was bred in me. You need to eat meat. You need to eat chicken. You need a lot of protein. So get those animal products and that steak in you. What does a cow eat? He's not eating organic grass-fed beef. They're eating corn and soy and grains. They don't eat meat. And yet we sit here and say, oh, I need that piece of steak from the cow to get all this protein. They don't eat meat to get their protein. They're getting it from the plants. Let's cut the middleman out. Let's go right to the source, right to the plants, and get our protein. And I share this so that as you're looking at pictures of your family, you're not talking about all the devastation of chronic illness, etc., but rather you're talking about how vibrant and how healthy everybody is. My daughter got married 2 years ago. This is a picture of our side of the family right now, and it's growing because I now have a grandson who's 17 months old. But nobody in this photo is battling chronic disease or illness. Not one person is taking any pill for diabetes or high blood pressure or cholesterol, right? So it's amazing. My wife and I have been blessed to share this message with TED Talks and TV and radio and documentaries. We are Food for Life instructors with Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. There's my beautiful wife. We were featured in Dr. Barnard's book, The Cheese Trap, a good one if you are struggling with addiction to cheese. That's a great book to read. And there are some documentaries. Eating You Alive is one of the ones we've been featured in. And it's kind of cool. It features some movie stars like Samuel L. Jackson and James Cameron and Penn Jillette. So if you're looking for some inspiration or documentaries, there's plenty of those out there. What the Health, Game Changers. I mean, there's many documentaries out there. So please do your research and look at these documentaries. And it all boils down to, folks, 4 main food groups. All the beans or legumes, all the grains, all the fruits, and all the veggies that you can muster. And there's millions of combinations that you can eat these foods in, and you're going to get all the protein you need. And I'm living proof of that. Now, our website is chickpeaandbean.com. I'm Mexican. I am Bean. My wife is a chick, and she's Chickpea. And we started our nonprofit about 6 years ago, just trying to help people who are struggling. And we've helped thousands of people at this point do pretty much exactly what I've done, and that's dramatically improve their health by adopting a low-fat, whole-food, plant-based lifestyle. You can find us at chickpeaandbean.com, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We do private coaching. And again, Scott, Andrea, and team, Jeff, thank you for all you do to try and continue to help share this message.
Thank you so much, Mark. Really appreciate that testimonial. Let's go right back over to Jeff now. And he's going to finish up the cooking demonstration and tell a little bit about his story.
All right, thank you, Mark. What an inspiration. Thank you so much. Every time I hear your story, I'm reminded of some of the things that I see in my family. A year ago, I buried my brother at age 48 from a massive heart attack, and that was diet mediated. So I know all about that, and we'll talk about my process of healing as well. Let me get you to the food for a minute and kind of show you where we're at. All right, so as you can see, we're not quite absorbed. Gotta turn this down a little bit on the Farro, as some people call it. Now, you probably noticed that I don't cook with any oil, so I use a good hard anodized nonstick pan. My favorite is this by Letty brand. I do have a little scratch on it, but you got to be careful with them. But this won't flake, and it works very well for not having to use oil. And if you know about oil, oil happens to be very calorie dense, and even olive oil has as much fat in it as lard and butter. So you can see we're just getting there. I need a little bit more time on this Farro. We're going to go ahead and add the spinach and let this wilt in there and heat up. We're going to take those beans that I've already drained and rinsed. We're going to just stir that in. And you can see that that's pretty close to done. We need about 5 more minutes or so. So all I'm going to do for right now is that heat by turning it way down. I'm going to cover it. And we'll plate that up and eat it in a minute. So
You went off on mute, Jeff.
thank you. Okay, and now I'm going to share my screen. See if I can make this full screen. Whoops. Only bad thing about this is for some reason I can't get to the full screen.
Jeff, can you click on slideshow in the upper menu?
Well, that's just it. Let me see if I can do it this way. No. Let's see if that'll let me do it. There we go. All right. Thanks so much for sorry about the delay there. So I want to share with you guys today about how my health went to hell and then how I got it back on track. And really, it was just a food is medicine approach. So this is a picture of me that's recent. In my 20s and 30s, I was always in fairly good health. Maybe 20, 30 pounds that I had to take off, and I really had to work at it here and there, but generally not too bad. In 2010, I was 40 years old, and that was kind of the beginning of really a downward spiral of health. In 2011, I took over a little restaurant in Saline, Michigan, and we turned it into a barbecue joint. And over the course of the almost 6 years of owning that, I gained over 130 pounds. And you can see the picture on the right of me in 2016 as the barbecue restaurant guy, a really big guy. So in October 2016, this was sort of my breaking point. This was the status of my health. The picture of my foot that you see there is I was sitting out back on my patio, and I had really severe edema. Now, edema is swelling of the extremities, and you can see that my ankle, and I didn't even have ankles, and the foot was so swollen. They make a shoe called a Croc, which you're probably familiar with, but they had a kitchen one too, the bistro style, that was non-slip, and that's what we wore in the kitchen. And in order for me to wear a shoe while at work, I had to buy it a size bigger, and I literally had to cut the top of it to get my foot in it. At that time, I had really bad sleep apnea. I was on a CPAP machine just to get a little bit of sleep. I was pre-diabetic with a fasting blood glucose of 106. My cholesterol was high, my blood pressure was high, I had elevated kidney and liver enzymes, severe joint pain to the tune of 3 medications, which was a pain medication, an anti-inflammatory, and a muscle relaxer. And I was taking 21 200 milligram ibuprofen every single day. So 3 times a day, I'd pop 7 of those pills in my mouth just to make it through the day. And I was also suffering from really bad anxiety. Now, if you suffered from anxiety, you know what I mean, just that gripping feeling. You just kind of go, and you try and get through it. And it's a horrible feeling. And then, of course, my weight was 348 pounds. So over the course of 2 years, I sought medical attention on a number of different occasions. And it was mostly because I was concerned about the edema. I was also having a few musculoskeletal issues where my sciatic would go out and make it difficult for me to walk. So steroid injections now and again. And I was, like I said, on those 3 medications. Over the course of 2 years, I went to 3 different urgent cares, 2 fantastic medical systems, both St. Joseph Mercy and Michigan Medicine here in Ann Arbor. And I saw over a dozen different doctors. Now, being a small business owner, a barbecue restaurant owner, I bragged about what I did for a living. I bragged about the restaurant because we were always looking for more business. So I let them know, and they were interested in it. So there was no mistake about what my diet looked like. It was very meat focused. In my younger years, I did that high protein diet to lose weight, and so I had this like protein mentality. I got to get protein. I got to just focus on the protein. And the results were obviously horrific. A lot of weight gain. I also had discovered Michigan microbrews right after moving out this way. So I was, drinking 5 or 6 beers in a night, and I was eating a lot of meat and omelets and hash browns and, it's things like that for breakfast, bacon and eggs, of course. And over the course of that time, the doctors never once discussed nutrition with me. So, I mean, a dozen different doctors had an opportunity. I had one guy say, you might want to consider gastric bypass surgery. And make no mistake that it was barbecue that I was eating. So when my last little stint at St. Joe's, I went in, I was having really bad GI pain, gastrointestinal pain. And I stayed there overnight, and then they were going to check me out. And I said, whoa, wait a second. I haven't seen the doctor. You're not addressing the edema. I don't know why I have this pain. You guys can't tell me. I want to see the doctor. So he kind of stomped in, and I said, listen, doc, you haven't addressed these problems. I'm just going to be right back in here. And he looked at me and put his hands on his hip and shook his head. And he said, you just need to stop living like a 35-year-old man and start living like a 45-year-old man, and handed me 8 more prescriptions. So you can imagine that I was confused, and I had no idea what that meant. And I was looking at that list of prescriptions, and I thought, man, I'm going to be a pill addict. So when I got out of the hospital, I had a conversation with my mom. My mom, at the time, I believe she was 68, very healthy, in decent shape, doing yoga every day, walking. And I said, Mom, they're just not addressing this. They're not giving me any answers, and they want me to take 8 more prescriptions. So Mom got mad, and she had some advice for me. And she said, don't fill those prescriptions. Food is medicine. Do the damn research. And so I did. But I found that really my biggest barrier at the time was just lack of knowledge. I thought that, as long as I did a high protein diet, I'd be in good shape and I'd be all good. And come to find out, that wasn't necessarily the case. So at first I found a anti-inflammatory diet, and this is what it looked like. I stopped eating beef, chicken, and pork. I cut my dairy consumption down to, a little bit of cheese a couple times a week. I stopped doing the ice cream and things like that. I started eating a lot more fruits and vegetables and whole grains. I was including 3 teaspoons of turmeric into my diet daily. And I just practiced kind of mindful eating. I just slowed it down, ate, waited till I was full, didn't take more. Moderate exercise. And when I say moderate exercise, I mean, I walked around the yard or down the street for 10 to 20 minutes, and that's it. And here was the results. It was immediate. In 3.5 weeks, that severe edema was gone. Now, mind you, I struggled with this for on and off for almost 2 years. And all of a sudden, it just gone. I mean, it totally disappeared. And I'm like, holy crap, couple dietary changes, and that's amazing. In 100 days, I lost 80 pounds. I got off that CPAP machine, and my blood pressure went back to normal. And I went, oh, there is really something to this. So I continued my journey. About 5 months in, I watched Forks Over Knives. Marc mentioned that story as well. And what happened with Forks Over Knives, I realized that dairy really has no place in human health. And so I ditched dairy. And another 3 weeks, and that lifelong anxiety completely disappeared. And what I realized is that knowledge is power. And by mid-2017, I had lost over 125 pounds. And I do believe that when you see that type of success immediately, when you kind of really go for it and you take that plant-rich diet challenge and you go all in and you're committed to it and you see results like this, you just keep going because you feel so good. Now, in 20 months, this was the result. I went back to my doctor. My blood work was absolutely stellar. I had low cholesterol at 149 total cholesterol. My blood pressure was staying normal at 108 over 65. I was starting to build muscle. And you can see this is me at the gym showing off a little bit, but I certainly wasn't protein deficient. My weight got down to 180 pounds. So that was a 168 pound weight loss. And now I'm pursuing a master's in public health because I realize how important our food system and culture is to good health. And that is not happening. So you can see from 2016 to 2019 this was 20 months, really, the 168 pound plant-based difference, absolutely phenomenal. So I want to leave you with this. Dr. David Katz is a doctor that I respect. He's got more letters behind his name than I can imagine, and also the director of the Yale University Prevention Research Center. He did a comprehensive review on diets and said, in the paper is called, "Can we say what diet is best for health?" Looking at Mediterranean, vegan, keto, and the various diet programs and things that were out there. And his conclusion was really simple in the end. And he stated that the case that we should indeed eat true food, mostly plants, is all but incontrovertible. And that is exactly how I got my health back. Thanks for listening.
Wow. You guys have told a very concise, amazing success story in just such a brief time. What a power-packed 44 minutes we've had already. I would like to just give a brief testimonial of my own at this point. I just turned 65, and my primary care physician is my dentist. And I say that because that is the person who I see most often. At age 63, I got a brand new primary care physician. And after being on plant-based nutrition for 30 years, that primary care physician who was concerned about my plant-rich diet did the blood work. It came back. He said, "Your blood work is amazing." I was concerned about iron. You have absolutely no problem with iron. And you know what? You don't even need to come back to see me even for an annual visit unless you have some kind of problem. Now, that's pretty cool. And I really appreciated Marc's disclaimer at the beginning, where, we don't want to get in the middle, between you and your primary care physician. Because if you're on medication, you probably need that medication. But if you, and I'm just going to kind of challenge Marc and Jeff with this statement, if you would switch out your animal-based products for plant-based products, plant-based foods, you will experience improvement in your health. That is a guarantee. You will experience improved health. How much that is, that's completely up to your individual constitution. But by now we've, several of us here have just heard so many stories like this, we just got to recommend it. So I want to open it up for questions. Please feel free, Jeff or Marc, to comment on what I just said.
I'm gonna jump in for just a second because, if you're like me, it's all about the food, right? So we got to show you what this little dish looks like. Plate it up. Just amazing, healthy, hearty, very filling dish. So had to show that off for a minute. But yeah, what we welcome questions. So unless Marc has something else to say.
No, just echoing basically what Scott mentioned, and that is that in my decade of living this way and then helping thousands of people, there has, like Scott said, there's not been one person that has not improved their health. Now, we all come from varied backgrounds, right? Some of us may have drank a lot of alcohol, maybe have done drugs, smoked a lot of cigarettes, etc., right? Maybe we weren't moving at all. So we come from varied backgrounds, but everybody that has done this, that we have helped, that truly wrap their arms around this idea that food is what's killing us, but it can also be what saves us, they've gotten better. And I tell people, look, there is no guarantee that you're going to get off every single medication. There's no guarantee that you'll lose 1,000,000 pounds. But I guarantee you, if you do wrap your arms around this lifestyle, your body will start to recover to the best and to the extent that it can. And now some of us may still need some medication, but for the majority of people, they dramatically reduce, if not eliminate, the amount of medications they need. So it is really a game changer for people who are struggling. And we all know, I mean, if I asked everybody here on the call, hey, who knows somebody struggling with diabetes? Who knows somebody who has high blood pressure, high cholesterol, who has some form of heart disease or atherosclerosis or arthritis or edema, we all know people who are struggling like crazy. And this lifestyle can dramatically improve the health. So I just wanted to echo what you were saying, Scott, because it's so true.
And I appreciate what you said, Jeff, about anxiety. I had not heard that yet in our series, that your anxiety was, you had this sensation of anxiety. And even that disappeared, because I know people who have an anxiety disorder. So please come off mute, put a chat in if you have a question for Marc or Jeff.
I will jump in with a question if that's okay. And I welcome everybody just to blurt out a question or, put one in the chat. Thank you both so much. I consider both of you friends and such incredible inspirations to me. So I want to thank you for your wonderful stories and sharing those with us today. This is for both of you. I'd love to hear both of you answer this. So many people are afraid that it's just going to be too hard and they're not going to like the food. And Marc addressed this a little bit in his presentation, but I would really love to hear from you two. Was it hard? What did you think about it? What was the reality for you once you dove in?
So so for me, and I know Jeff, he's the chef of the two of us, but for me, it was truly the results I began to see in days. I mean, literally days of me adopting this low-fat, plant-based lifestyle. Because again, we're watching the oils, etc. I saw my glucose levels starting to plummet. I was shedding between 5 to 7 pounds a week, right? My energy levels were going up. Everything was moving in the right direction. And in my decade of being sick, I had never experienced anything like that. So that, coupled with the fact that growing up Mexican, eating enchiladas and fajitas and tacos and burritos, I'm thinking, oh man, what am I going to do with all these foods that I grew up enjoying? Well, guess what? All those spices, all the seasonings and rubs and spices you put on that food, I'm still able to enjoy all those same flavors I grew up enjoying with those Mexican foods because they're all vegan. They're spices and they're herbs. And so we've tweaked a few of the ingredients, right? We're not eating the meat anymore. Maybe it's tofu, maybe it's mushrooms, maybe it's beans instead. But the flavors are all there. So I still eat pasta. I still eat Mexican food, Indian food, all these different amazing dishes because I'm still able to enjoy all these spices. So you spice it up. And I don't feel like I missed out on anything. And in fact, I've gained my health back and I've given myself a raise because we project about $22,000 I've saved in this decade of not paying for Lantus, not paying for my medications. So we gave ourselves a raise, we gave ourselves a health back, and I'm still enjoying all these amazing, tasting, wonderful foods.
Yeah, I'm going to reiterate that too. As a restaurant owner, and especially with barbecue, if you ever tried pork that didn't have any seasoning on it or wasn't smoked, it's disgusting. It really is about the rub, the spices that you put on that and how you season that to make it taste good. So for me as a chef, I think it was easier to make a transition because I like to cook and I know my spices well. So you have to not be afraid to experiment. But here's the reality of what we eat every single day. We cycle through the same foods there's about 25 meals for the average person. Now, that can vary from, it might be Indian, it might be Chinese takeout, it might be Burger King, it might be pizza, it might be spaghetti that you do at home, it might be a casserole that you do at home. It's a pretty limited amount of foods that we eat and that we cycle through all the time. So what I encourage people to do is write down those recipes, find your substitutions and replacements in those dishes, and eat the same food. Marc was talking about Mexican food. I have a cauliflower and walnut taco meat recipe that is super popular on my blog at arespectfullife.com. And people say, man, you can't tell the difference and you can fool a meat eater with it. So I'll put black beans with cumin and cilantro in it, and we'll do a little bit of Spanish rice. We'll do the cauliflower walnut meat and throw your salsa on it, and grab your tortillas. And I switched to wheat tortillas, so that's a good thing, or a corn. But you make those little substitutions and you have the same meal that you ate before. The other thing that happens is that your palate does change when you're not taking in all of that salt and sugar from prepackaged foods all the time, and then from restaurant food as well. And you switch over, you start to notice that you're picking up these other flavors, whether it's in a fruit or a vegetable, or it's in a bean. You're starting to taste these like that you weren't able to taste before because you don't have all that salt and sugar clouding it up. So be liberal with spices and have fun with it. It's fun I enjoy cooking. And like I said, if you're going to cook something, pile it in, make it double the batch and freeze some for later. Makes it a lot easier.
Thank you for those answers. And I just want to reiterate something that you said, or add to something you were just saying, Jeff. The other day I was walking through the kitchen and my husband was just cutting up some tomatoes for a homemade salsa fresca. And I was actually just kind of shocked because the aroma of that tomato hit me and just made my mouth water. And I turned around and said, are you just cutting tomatoes? And he said, that's all I'm doing. It wasn't like he had already put in spices and herbs or started cooking garlic. It was just the tomatoes. And I think that this transition to a plant-based diet has done that for me too. It's made me so much more, my sense is so much more acute. And both my sense of smell, my sense of taste, and the flavor of the whole foods is just spectacular.
Yeah. And Andrew, you're so right when you talk about smell. Like, a little over a decade ago, if I was driving by Burger King or one of these restaurants and you smell that food and you're like, oh man, that smells good, right? But today, 10 years in, I adopted this because of my health, this lifestyle, but then these blinders come off about the way that we're treating these poor animals, in these slaughterhouses, the devastation it's causing to our environment, right? And so if we're in the grocery store, when I walk by that meat department and the cheese department, I smell, like 100-year-old socks with the cheese, right? It smells terrible to me. And then, unfortunately, I smell the meat, and I think, for me anyway, I think of the devastation that we're causing to these poor animals that is not needed, the rainforest we're clearing in the Amazon, all these other negative impacts that we have on the planet. And I think about my 17-month-old grandson. What kind of planet are we going to leave him with, right? And so that's why you're right, those smells. But you know what? With him, I'll take a lemon or an orange, and I just with my nail, I just kind of scratch the shell of the orange or the lemon and let him smell it. You can smell that stuff. It smells beautiful and wonderful, and that's what you get from plants, right? You can't do that with a piece of raw meat or cheese, right? So again, it's just that those smell, and it's just amazing. The oregano and the sage and all of these wonderful spices that you talk about, it's phenomenal. So,
Are there any other questions? Please come off mute and shout out your question. I saw a comment in the chat, and that is, wow, where do we get this information from? Where would the recording be available? We actually have all the recordings of all of our presentations so far available up to date. This one will go up in just another couple of hours. If you're getting our emails from the challenge, then we have a link there for all the recordings. And we've literally been around the globe. We've been in Africa, we've been in India, we've been up on the top of Mount Everest. Thank you today, Marc, for taking us to Mexico. What's really amazing about this is that this works for everybody. We're all just people. And, in the dietary variety is so amazing that there is a plant-based nutritional plan for literally everybody.
Yeah.
It just works.
You know, and Jeff would probably echo the same sentiment. Jeff and I are no more special than any one of you listening to this presentation or listening to this recording. We're just two guys who decided, I want to try to fix my health. I want to try to do it naturally and not without all these synthetic drugs that have all these and carry all these side effects, right? And so we're just two guys who said, hey, I'm going to focus on this. We saw amazing results. And here, all these years later, both Jeff and I, we're still continuing to be the healthiest I've ever been. And in my decade of helping people, there is not, I don't care how old you are, I don't care how sick you are. Everybody can make drastic improvement. And just wrap your arms around this idea. Jeff's here to help you. I'm here to help you. You got Andrea and Scott and this amazing team sharing this information. So let us know if we can help in any way, shape, or form.
And on that note, Mark, thank you so much. That was like the perfect closing note. I want to thank everybody who showed up here today. Feel free, once you get the link to the recording, to share that out. And you can even share the link where we've got all the recordings. There's so much information available to help people get into this lifestyle.
Excuse me, Scott, just one quick, there was a question that popped up in the chat. I'd love to just quickly take the opportunity while we have Jeff and Mark to ask that, if that would be okay.
Go ahead. Yeah, please.
Yeah. Okay. This is from Mohan. Thank you so much, Mohan, for joining us. We really appreciated having you at these presentations. What oil and how much do you use in your foods? I would ask both Mark and Jeff.
I'll answer that real quick. Now, you got to know, coming from a restaurant background, that we used a lot of oil, and part of the reason why food in restaurants has so much oil is because it makes cooking it faster. People expect their meals in 20 minutes. We throw oil in the pan or on the grill. It cooks faster, and we can slop it out on a plate. But that's literally what it is. It's a bunch of oil. So, Mr. Chugani, no oil is health food. Period. There's coconut oil and avocado oil are very, very high in saturated fat, are not health food. A little bit of olive oil is not going to kill you, but if you are trying to get your health back and lose weight, we encourage you to ditch the oil for a couple of reasons. One, is really super calorie dense. And I did put a link in the chat for you, sir, just some tips on cooking without oils and some facts about oils, and so you understand what that means to your health. The other reason why we try and avoid oils is because that omega-6 fatty acid in oils is very inflammatory to humans. And this didn't used to be such an issue in years past, but every restaurant now has a fryer and they use a ton of oil in it, and that contributes to the diabesity issue that we have in the US as well. Very calorie dense. So I encourage you, if you're trying to get your health back, ditch the oil, and you'll be a lot better off.
Yeah, just echoing what Jeff is saying, 1 tiny tablespoon of oil, 14 grams of fat, and 120 calories. I mean, how tiny a tablespoon is. It's not much, right? And then you take what Jeff just said, all the saturated fat. We know that canola oil and olive oil have the least amount of saturated fats of most of the oils. However, like Jeff said, tons of fat. It basically, it hijacks our taste buds. You don't get to really taste the food. It's calorie dense. So like Jeff said, steam it, bake it, put it in an Instant Pot. Do everything you can to minimize the oils. And if you absolutely have to, maybe dab some on some kind of napkin or paper towel and maybe wipe it on the pan. But Jeff mentioned there are some pans, so it's hard to anodize. We have a lot of those too. Those are the ones that help the food not stick to it. Try cooking with veggie broth. Try cooking with water. Steam it, bake it. You can do so much there with it. But we try to avoid it everywhere we can because it's not a health food, just like Jeff said. So we avoid it like the plague wherever possible.
Yeah,
Eat it raw. Eat it raw or cook it with water, right?
Yeah, you can saute with just a tablespoon of water. It'll do the same thing as oil will. You can caramelize onions. There's a number of different things you can do, but the reason I like this Bialetti pan is not only because it's the hard anodized nonstick and won't flake like a Teflon pan will. You can also get it at Bed Bath & Beyond for, I think, $23. And if you use your $5 coupon, you got a really cheap pan under 20 bucks. So.
Wow.
Jeff, there was a question about exactly is the name of the pan? How do you spell it?
So Bialetti, and I want to say it's BIALETTI, I believe. Probably
Okay.
tells me right on there.
And
Yep. BIALETTI.
And I just have a quick follow-up question because a lot of people feel challenged by not using oil because they want to caramelize onions. As a chef, Jeff or Marc, in your experience, what do you do is there a way to get sort of a caramelized experience with onions if you're not using oil?
So that it's actually pretty easy. You know, what a caramelized onion is basically is it's sticking to your pan, right? And it's starting to brown. So it takes a little playing with the temperature on your stove to get the right temperature. You don't want it too hot where it's burning on your pan, right? That's why people use oils, is because it keeps things from sticking and burning oftentimes. So you just got to turn it down a little bit. It takes a little bit longer, but it will brown. But part of when you talk about you know, on the chef side, the reason that we caramelize those things is that it changes the flavor a little bit, gives it a little bit of maybe a nutty-ish flavor, and so then what they'll do is deglaze the pan where all those little brown bits are stuck in that pan, and they deglaze it. You can use wine, you can use vinegar, you can use a little bit of water just to scrape those little bits off of the pan and include that in what you're cooking.
And I'll just echo what Jeff said, Andrea. That's exactly. And I'm fortunate that I have Chickpea that does the vast majority of our cooking. But that's what she does. Exactly what Jeff said. It takes a little bit longer, but at the end of the day, the onions come out fantastic, and all we're using is water. So.
Oh, that's great to know. I can't wait to try that. That'll be wonderful. Thank you both.
Is that all of
Could I
our
just ask-
questions?
Could I just ask something? So oil is not good to have, but here in Singapore, we have a vegan butter called Nutalix vegan butter. So I was just wondering, what is your opinion of Nutalix butter?
So I'm not familiar with Nutalix, the brand. What I can tell you is typically when we see vegan butters, they are usually loaded with a lot of oil. We'd have to look at the ingredients to understand what's in the butter. But what I have seen here in America, when I see butters, when I see a lot of vegan cheeses, when I see a lot of these vegan meats, these Impossible and Beyond burgers, there's typically a lot of fat and a lot of oil in these products. There are some that are made with nuts, like there's some cheeses or spreads that are made with a lot of nuts. But one of the things, when you look at diabetes specifically and the cause of insulin resistance, intramyocellular lipid, or fat inside your muscle cells and tissues, not your adipose tissue, you know, your belly fat around my belly, but actual fat inside your muscle cells and tissues, that they get consumed with too much fat. And then as insulin tries to take that glucose out of the blood and inject it into those muscle cells and tissues to be burned off as energy, that whole signaling process breaks down, and thus glucose levels start to rise slowly but surely. And next thing you know, people have pre-diabetes and type 2 diabetes. So this is why it's important to not eat a lot of fatty foods, and why to keep it low, at least in my experience, in my opinion, and everything I've learned from Dr. Barnard, and insulin resistance. And, you know, if you think about it, fatty liver, they're not calling it, broccoli liver. It's fat. There's too much fat. You know, a lot of people are struggling with livers that have too much fat inside the actual liver cells.
Right.
And so again, fat, we are eating way too much fat. And I bet you if you look at the contents, at least in my opinion, not knowing the product, just about everyone I've seen, they're loaded with oils, loaded with fat. And that's one thing that we want to be mindful of. I hope that helps.
Thank you, sir.
So in the overarching thing is, retrain your taste bud, retrain your taste buds. Once you just sort of eat other foods and stop eating the oils and the fats, you just won't miss it anymore.
Yeah, and the only thing I will tell you is fats. Our bodies do need fat. Don't get me wrong. We need those good omega-3s, and we need some fat. The problem is so many of us are getting way too much every day. Typically, a couple of tablespoons of some ground flax seeds, some chia seeds, maybe an ounce or so of some walnuts. That'll get you pretty much most of the fat you need for the day. Get you some good omegas. But we're eating at Burger King, and we're pouring oil all over our salads, and then we're pouring a ton of oil in the pan and cooking all our food and eating French fries. And so we're just bombarded with all this fat on a daily basis. And that's really one of the main struggles that most people have.
That was such a great explanation. And Mohan, I would just love to add to that, because Cheryl was nice enough to actually look up Nutelix online and sent it to me just to take a look at it. And exactly as Marc said, I mean, everything he said is right on. And one other thing I just want to, in addition to fat, that I want to make everyone aware of is that a lot of those products are very high in sodium. And we may not think of that as a salt source, but it generally is. And in this product in particular, there's a lot of sodium. And you just want to be really careful of that, because sodium is extremely hard on our heart and vascular system.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I just want to let everyone know that I did put the link again to the document in the chat that will have the link to the recording for this presentation.
Thank you, everyone. And with that, we have 5 more days in our challenge, and we have, I think it's 4 more presentations. It might be 5, but we have more presentations coming up. So look at your schedule and watch for that time in your time zone. So thanks again, Marc and Jeff. And we'll see everybody at the next one.
Eat plants, baby. Eat plants.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Take care, everybody.
Have a great day, and thanks everyone for coming. Take care.
Plants and go blue, right,
Go
Marc?
blue, for sure.
Go blue.
Bye-bye.
Bye.